All right, today we're going to break down what is, without a doubt, the single most important chemical reaction for life on this planet, photosynthesis. I mean, it's this silent green engine that literally powers everything, and you just can't overstate how crucial it is. And hey, that's not me being dramatic. Think about it. Every single bite of food you eat, every breath you take, it all started with this one process. It's the ultimate source of our food, the oxygen in our air. It is, quite simply, the foundation of life, turning plain old sunlight into the energy that keeps almost everything alive. So, to really wrap our heads around this, let's kick things off with a question. A simple one, really, but it's stumped scientists for centuries. You look at a massive tree, right? Where did all that stuff, the wood, the leaves, all that mass, actually come from? Did it come from the soil, from water? The answer is, well, it's not what you'd think, and it gets right to the heart of what this is all about. Yeah, figuring this out wasn't some single aha moment. Not at all. It was more like a huge, planet-sized detective story that played out over hundreds of years. Each new clue brought us a little closer to cracking the case of how plants pull off this amazing trick. So this puzzle got solved piece by tiny piece. It really started back in the 1770s with Joseph Priestley noticing that plants could somehow fix bad air. Then Jan Ingenhousz showed that, hey, you need sunlight for that to work. As time went on, others connected the dots to glucose, figured out which colors of light work best, and then came the big one. The discovery that the oxygen we're breathing comes from splitting water molecules. Incredible. And you gotta love Priestley's experiment. It was so simple, but so brilliant. He put a candle in a sealed jar, and of course, the flame went out. Put a mouse in there, and, well, you can guess what happened. But when he put a little mint plant in the jar with them, the candle stayed lit, and the mouse was just fine. The conclusion was huge. Plants release something into the air that we need to live. And that's something? Oxygen, of course. So after all those discoveries, all those experiments, it all boils down to this one beautiful equation. It basically says plants take in some carbon dioxide, some water, add a little bit of light energy, and boom, they create glucose, sugar, basically the fuel for life, and as a little bonus for us, they release the oxygen we need to breathe. Okay, so we've got the ingredients and we know what comes out at the end, but what's actually going on inside the leaf to make it happen? Let's dive in and take a look at the machinery. Right here, we're zooming away into the chloroplast. This is the tiny green engine inside every single plant cell. This is where the magic happens. Seriously, it's like a microscopic, solar-powered factory, all self-contained and totally dedicated to one job, turning sunlight into life. Now, photosynthesis isn't just one thing. It's really more like a two-act play. Act 1 is all about the photo part, the light reactions. This is where the plant actually captures the sun's energy and stores it in these little molecular batteries, ATP and NADPH. Then you have Act 2, the synthesis part. That's the Calvin cycle, and it uses all that stored energy to build sugar out of carbon dioxide. So in Act 1, you got these amazing things called light harvesting complexes. Just picture hundreds of tiny satellite dishes. Those are the pigment molecules, all grabbing photons from the sun and funneling that energy down to one central spot. It's an incredibly efficient way to gather as much light as possible. Okay, so once that energy is collected, it's used to supercharge a bunch of electrons. It's literally like charging a battery. These high-energy electrons then get passed down a chain, kind of like a bucket brigade, releasing their energy to make those ATP and NADPH molecules. And to replace the electrons it just used, the plant just splits a water molecule. The fantastic byproduct of that for us? Oxygen. That's where it comes from. All right, on to Act 2, the Calvin cycle. This is the factory floor where the sugar actually gets built. And it all kicks off with probably the most important enzyme on the entire planet, a little guy called rubisco. Its whole job is to snatch a CO2 molecule right out of the air. Then, using the energy from those batteries we just charged, that CO2 gets turned into sugar. And finally, the whole cycle just resets itself, ready to grab the next CO2 molecule. It's just brilliant. And you know what? This is the answer to that question we asked at the very beginning. Remember the giant tree? This cycle, just spinning and spinning inside every chloroplast, is how that tree gets built. It's the process that literally pulls carbon out of thin air and turns it into the physical stuff of the plant. The wood, the leaves, all of it. But of course, nature never stops tinkering.
For some plants living in really tough spots, the standard way of doing things just wasn't efficient enough. So they evolved a kind of turbocharged version.
So, here's the problem with the standard process. We call it C3 photosynthesis. That super important enzyme rubisco, well, it has a little flaw. Sometimes it messes up and grabs an oxygen molecule instead of a CO2 molecule. It's a wasteful mistake, and it happens a lot more when it's hot and dry, and plants have to close up their pores to avoid drying out.
And this is where C4 plants come in. Think of things like corn and sugarcane. They came up with an absolutely brilliant solution, a totally different leaf structure that works like a two-stage pump to force feed carbon dioxide right where it needs to go.
So here's how they do it. C4 plants use a special molecule to grab CO2 in the outer cells of the leaf. Then they actively pump that CO2 into deeper cells, creating this super high concentration right next to rubisco. It's basically like shoving the CO2 in its face so it can't possibly make a mistake and grab oxygen. This makes them way more efficient and lets them thrive in the heat. Okay, so we've gone from this huge historical mystery all the way down to the nitty-gritty of the molecular machines. Let's zoom back out now and just think about the incredible impact of this one single process on our world. When you get right down to it, almost everything comes back to photosynthesis. It's the base of every food chain. It's the source of the oxygen we have to live. Even the fossil fuels we're burning today, that's just ancient sunlight, captured by plants millions and millions of years ago and stored underground. And figuring all this stuff out isn't just for textbooks. As the guy who mapped the Calvin cycle, Melvin Calvin, pointed out, we're now trying to copy nature's homework. We're using the principles of photosynthesis to inspire new ideas for renewable energy, for new materials. We're trying to learn from the master. Which kind of leaves us with this one last thought to chew on. For billions of years, plants have perfected this incredible system for capturing solar power. They turn sunlight, water, and air into food and fuel with mind-boggling efficiency. So as we face our own challenges with energy and resources, the real question is, what else can we learn from them? What other secrets are still hiding inside the green engine of our planet?